You've been following Gypsy Rose Blanchard for years, watching her story unfold from the innocent child to her infamous unliving of her mother. Now, fast forward, and she's making headlines again. But this time, not about her past, it's about her pregnancy. At first glance, everything seems pretty straightforward. A 22-week pregnancy, updated video, some social media posts, the usual. But then things start getting weird. The baby bump. It's there in one video, then suddenly not in another. And she's got explanations, but do they really add up? The more you look, the more the questions start piling up. Is Gypsy Rose trying to pull up another stunt? Or is this just a massive misunderstanding? Today we are going deep into this pregnancy saga, dissecting Gypsy's every word, analyzing her videos and taking a hard look at what's real and what's not. And trust me, it's not just about her body, it's about her entire narrative. Is Gypsy Rose still the master manipulator we once knew, or this is something else entirely? Buckle up because this one's going to be a roller coaster ride of contradictions, questions, and some seriously suspect moves from Gypsy Rose. So grab your popcorn because this is going to be a wild ride as we dive into details piece by piece. Let's dive right into it. From the very start, things feel off, and it's important to look at this step by step to really capture the discrepancies, contradictions, and odd moments that raise so many questions.
Hey everybody, so it's a brand new week. So this week I am 22 weeks pregnant. And
Gypsy starts the video calmly, announcing that she's 22 weeks pregnant. While this should be an exciting moment, the delivery feels rehearsed and flat. She seems more concerned with the format of her update rather than expressing genuine emotion about her pregnancy. Typically, when someone announces a milestone in their pregnancy, especially at 22 weeks, there is a mix of excitement and relief. For the first-time mothers, this stage is a significant marker where the baby is clearly growing, and many start to feel connected to the baby. However, Gypsy's tone is relatively detached. There is no visible excitement in her facial expressions or voice, which feels unnatural for someone who's supposed to be thrilled about the experience. The rehearsed tone signals that she may be more focused on delivering a performance rather than sharing a personal milestone. This is a subtle red flag because genuine emotion is often more spontaneous and less controlled.
trimester, I've been experiencing a lot of the things that are associated with pregnancy. So I have started to feel her kick a lot. I have started to feel those movements, and I've started to notice kind of her sleeping pattern. So I have noticed that she kicks a lot at night, anywhere from 9 o'clock at night to 11 o'clock at night. And she's calmer during the daytime. I have noticed that she's more active whenever I eat sweets.
She describes this as a regular pattern she's observed. At 22 weeks, babies are still developing, and their movements are often erratic and not tied to any specific sleeping pattern. Regularity in movement tends to develop much later in pregnancy, often in the third trimester when babies have more established routines in the womb. Gypsies claim that the baby consistently kicks at the same time every night feels unnatural and forced. This type of fabricated regularity can be seen as a manipulative tactic. By giving a precise schedule, Gypsy is attempting to create an illusion that her pregnancy is processing perfectly and predictably, which contrasts with the reality of most pregnancies, where baby movements can be random. Her insistence on such a specific pattern, combined with the previous over-explanation of the kicks, makes it seem like she is adding unnecessary detail to make her story sound more convincing. The claim of a regular sleeping pattern at 22 weeks is highly unlikely.
I have noticed that she's more active whenever I eat sweets. So I ate a Kit Kat bar, and she was up for like 2 hours, kicking me like every 5 seconds. So I'm getting used to that. So far, I mean, that part of it has been very magical. There are some times that I'm kind of like, okay, stop moving. But then whenever she stops moving and she's like asleep, that's when I start to miss her moving, actually. So that's definitely been an exciting part of pregnancy.
Gypsy begins discussing how she has started feeling her baby kick a lot. She mentions that the kicks are practically strong when she eats sweets, citing an example where she ate a Kit Kat bar and the baby allegedly kicked every 5 seconds for the first 2 hours. At 22 weeks, most first-time mothers experience flutters. Not strong, these flutters are typically subtle, sporadic, and inconsistent. Strong kicks, especially frequent ones, usually don't happen until later in the pregnancy, around the 3rd trimester. Her description of constant kicks for hours, especially after a single Kit Kat, feels exaggerated. Gypsy over-explains the situation, detailing how the Kit Kat bar caused the prolonged movement. People who are fabricating or exaggerating stories tend to include unnecessary details to bolster their explanations. Describing a specific food item and the exact frequency of kicks every 5 seconds adds an almost theoretical element to her story. This detailed yet unrealistic description of baby movement at 22 weeks leads us to question the accuracy of her account. Her need to include the specific details could be seen as a sign of exaggeration, which suggests she is trying too hard to convince her audience of the experience.
Some of them is actually quite unexpected. So I have noticed that about 2 weeks ago, my thighs have started to kind of like fall asleep. It feels like my thighs are asleep. So it happens when I'm standing for a long period of time, or I'm just like, I'm laying on one side, like I'm sleeping on one side for too long. I have noticed that my thighs start to get a little tingly and numb, and even a burning sensation sometimes. So I Googled what that could be associated with, because I never had that before. So turns out it is a symptom of pregnancy. They don't tell you about it. Not everybody gets it, but it's a form of like neuropathy that's caused by pregnancy. I forgot the term of it exactly, but I have been experiencing that, and there's nothing really anybody can do for it. It's just once I have the baby, that's whenever it will go away again. So that's been different. So usually I just kind of take breaks throughout the day, kind of sit down. If I'm walking through the mall, kind of take breaks throughout the day, kind of sit down. If I'm walking through the mall.
Gypsy moves on to talk about the symptoms she's experiencing, particularly numbness in her thighs. She attributes this to pregnancy-related neuropathy, saying it happens when she stands for too long or sleeps on one side. Gypsy mentioned Googling the condition, but can't remember the medical term for it. Pregnancy-related neuropathy like sciatica can occur, but it's typically more common in the later stages of pregnancy when the baby's weight begins to compress the nerves. At 22 weeks, the baby is still relatively small, and while some discomfort might occur, the level of numbness Gypsy describes is uncommon this early in pregnancy. Gypsy's inability to recall the exact medical term, despite claiming to have Googled it, stands out as a red flag. When people research their symptoms, especially when they are unusual or painful, they tend to remember details like the names of the condition. The vagueness of her explanation suggests she may not fully understand what she's talking about, which could indicate that this symptom is exaggerated or fabricated. The vagueness combined with the early stage of her pregnancy makes this symptom unquestionable. The fact that she can't recall specific medical information adds to the doubt surrounding the narrative.
Cravings. So my cravings have been, so far, just kind of, I guess, what you would expect with pregnancy, so sweets. But one thing I am starting to learn, I swear, my baby is going to love applesauce, because I did not eat applesauce like I'm eating it now. Like, before I got pregnant, I never even touched applesauce. Now I keep 2 packs in the fridge at all times. And I like it a certain way too. I'm kind of picky about how I like my applesauce. So I like mine cold, ice cold. So I usually take a cup of applesauce and I put it in the freezer for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, to let it get really, really cold, because I really like it that particular way. If it's any other kind of way, if it's room temperature, or if it's just kind of like kind of cold, I won't touch it. So I'm kind of picky about that. Icing has been a big one since I hit my 2nd trimester.
Gypsy then talks about her intense craving for applesauce, which she claims she never ate before pregnancy. She goes into great detail about how she likes her applesauce cold and puts it in the freezer for 30 to 40 minutes to get it to the perfect temperature. The level of detail Gypsy gives about something as trivial as applesauce is unnecessary. Most people would simply state that they have cravings for a particular food, but Gypsy over-explains, adding unnecessary details about how she eats the applesauce. This over-explanation is a common sign of some fabricating or embellishing their experience to make it sound more real. Her need to explain every small detail down to the exact time she leaves applesauce in the freezer feels artificial. When recounting genuine experiences, people don't usually fixate on mundane details unless they are trying to make their story sound more believable. This points to possible fabrication or exaggeration.
Um, when, when I was, before we knew the gender, I was trying to figure out the gender by doing all like the wives' tales that you hear about. So I tried one TikTok trend. It wasn't a trend. It was like a superstition. No, I don't even know what do you call it. What do you call it? Like yeah, like wives' tale. Like that's what they call it. So I tried the one with baking soda that you take like a cup of baking soda and then like your urine, and if it fizzes it's a boy, and if it doesn't fizz it's a girl. I tried that and it fizzed. Okay, so that was that pointed to boy, right? And then I had Ken do like the ring thing where you put a ring on a string and then you like dangle it over your belly, and which if it swings back and forth it's a boy, and if it swings in a circle it's a girl. And it swung back and forth, so again another sign of a boy. I didn't have morning
At this point,
sickness.
Gypsy delves into the gender prediction methods she used, including the baking soda test and the ring on a string method. She spends a good moment of time discussing these old wives' tales, even though they are widely regarded as unreliable. This segment feels like filler content. Rather than focusing on real, verifiable details about her pregnancy, Gypsy talks about superstitions and outdated methods of predicting gender. This is another sign that she's trying to extend the length of the video without adding any substantial information. Bringing up irrelevant gender prediction methods at this stage serves to distract from more important aspects of her pregnancy, like the inconsistencies and her symptoms and baby movements. The fact that she dedicates so much time into something that has no bearing on her actual pregnancy further indicates she may be using these anecdotes to avoid addressing the real issues.
It's not necessarily always done at 20 weeks. It could be done anywhere from 18 to 24 weeks. They just call it the 20-week anatomy scan or just anatomy scan. So when we had our anatomy scan, I was very nervous. I had researched a lot on TikTok about anatomy scans and what they're like and what they mean. So what the anatomy scan does is look at every part of her body to make sure that everything is developing normally. So they looked at her brain, they looked at her bones, they looked at her stomach, her liver, her heart, particularly her heart. And it was an ultrasound, and it was wonderful to see like how she's developing and in real time, because I feel her all the time, and so I know her legs are pretty strong, but to actually like see her little feet, her little fingers, like everything just start to come together. Like I can remember back when I was 8 weeks pregnant and she looked like a little chicken and now she's a baby. Like she looks like a baby now. And so anyway, I had seen a lot of things on TikTok about what the anatomy scan is for. And so anatomy scans are to determine if there are any abnormalities whatsoever, if there would be any sort of anything going wrong. And so I mean, it's like when you go on WebMD and then you look up a migraine and then they tell you it's brain cancer. Like, don't do that with TikTok. So if anybody is pregnant out there right now and you're about ready to do your 20-week anatomy scan, don't go to TikTok because it will freak you out and psych you out. So don't do that. Just calm down. It will be all right. So the best thing to do is just do other research. Talk to your doctor, make sure that your doctor is informing you about what to expect. And that's something that I feel like is really important, is to have a good communication line with your doctor. So anyway, so we had our anatomy scan and visually everything looked normal. And so the doctor had taken notes, and so I get
Gypsy moves on to discuss her 20-week anatomy scan. She mentions feeling nervous and talks about researching the scan on TikTok. She expresses relief that everything turned out normal but doesn't provide any specific details about the scan itself. It's strange that Gypsy would turn to TikTok for advice about a serious medical procedure like anatomy scan. With her background, one might expect her to rely on medical professionals rather than social media for guidance. This detail feels out of place and undermines her credibility. Gypsy gives gives very little information about the scan itself. She doesn't mention any specific results, measurements, or feedback from her doctor, which is unusual. Most expert mothers are eager to share the details of their baby's health at this stage, especially if they've been concerned about their baby bump size, as Gypsy has been. The absence of specifics suggests that she may not have a solid grasp of what actually is happening with her pregnancy. The lack of medical detail combined with her reliance on TikTok points out a shallow understanding of her own pregnancy. This raises doubts about whether she is truly experiencing what she claims.
And so the doctor told me everything is normal. She is developing perfectly normal. She is exactly the right size that she needs to be for, the gestational age. So, which made me feel good because I do have a smaller baby bump. So I was kind of like, is she growing like normally? Like should I be like, oh, you're pregnant already? But I also learned that a lot of women, like with their first pregnancy, they won't start showing till later on in their healthy pregnancy. Everything's going good on that front. Symptoms are manageable. Overall, I think that I have a very good pregnancy. I like to say that I'm blessed that things are going so well. So it was a relief to know that.
Gypsy concludes the video by reiterating that everything is going well with her pregnancy and that she feels blessed. Once again, her tone is flat and there is no real emotion behind her words. The conclusion of the video feels more like a scripted performance than a heartfelt message. There is no visible relief, excitement, or even nervousness, which is often present when someone is discussing such a life-changing experience. The lack of emotion throughout the entire video makes it hard to believe that she's being authentic. Gypsy's calm, almost detached demeanor throughout the video raises serious questions about the authenticity of her story. When someone is experiencing a significant life event like pregnancy, especially for the first time, it's normal to show a range of emotions. The absence of any genuine emotion feels unnatural and reinforces the idea that she may be exaggerating or fabricating parts of her narrative. Before posting the infamous pregnancy update video, Gypsy addressed the swirling rumors and criticism by commenting directly on the skepticism surrounding her fluctuating baby bump. In her statement, she claims that her baby bump looks larger when she's wearing tight clothing and nearly disappears when she wears baggy clothes, calling it common sense.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard, front and center. This was last week. This was yesterday. I need you to make it make sense.
While on the surface this explanation seems plausible, it's filled with contradictions and deflections. For one, Gypsy had previously posted photos and videos where her baby bump was visible, even in loose-fitting clothes. Critics immediately pointed out that her baby bump appeared prominently in certain outfits even when they weren't tight. This creates an immediate inconsistency between her previous appearances and her recent defense. Secondly, her sarcastic and defensive tone towards the so-called internet trolls is another tactic to divert attention from the real issue. Instead of offering solid proof or clarification, Gypsy focuses on discrediting her critics. This is a classic manipulation tactic. When someone is concerned, they deflect and make the conversation about the accuser rather than addressing the accusations directly. Gypsy's latest moves, including the video in the swimming pool where she wore a tight swimsuit to show off her baby bump, only intensified the skepticism. While the swimsuit was supposed to put rumors to rest, many viewers noticed that her belly seemed to fluctuate in size even within the same video. This inconsistency only added more fuel to the fire, making her attempts to convince the public seem more desperate. Gypsy has made several moves to address the public's growing doubts about her pregnancy. Yet, there remain glaring unanswered questions that only deepen the suspicions. First and foremost, why does her baby bump appear to shrink and expand so dramatically? This is the most pressing question, and one that Gypsy has consistently deflected by blaming clothing choices. But even her defenders can't ignore the fact that her belly size fluctuates unnaturally in photos and videos. Another major question: why hasn't Gypsy provided any medical evidence? For someone under this much scrutiny, it would be reasonable for her to offer some kind of medical documentation, whether it be an ultrasound image or a simple confirmation from a doctor. Instead, she relies on vague descriptions of her anatomy scan without giving any variable proof. The third question: Why hasn't Gypsy directly addressed the timeline inconsistencies? In earlier videos, she expressed concern about her small bump, but then dismissed these concerns in later statements, saying it's just a matter of clothing. This change in narrative hasn't been fully explained, leaving many wondering if she's hiding something. Lastly, why does she avoid discussing her health more openly? Given her background with Didi and the history of medical manipulation, Gypsy's reluctance to provide clear medical-based explanations for her current situation only adds to the suspicion. These unanswered questions leave a lot of room for doubt, and until Gypsy addresses them head-on, the skepticism will only grow. Many commenters and viewers who have followed Gypsy's story have voiced their concerns, and the common point raised a clear picture of doubt and disbelief. One of the most frequent comments revolves around Gypsy's overly detailed explanations of her pregnancy symptoms. As one viewer noted, she's listing every pregnancy symptom from what to expect when you are expecting. This feels less like a personal account and more like someone reciting what they have read in a book. Genuine experiences don't usually come with such structured textbook-like narration, and many commenters have picked up on this. Another major point of concern comes from women who have been pregnant themselves. One commenter said, "I've had 4 pregnancies. No way can she feel her baby doing all these things at 22 weeks. This is a recurring theme, with multiple viewers agreeing that the movements Gypsy describes, like strong, consistent kicks, simply don't align with what's typical at 22 weeks, especially for a first-time mom. Most women at this stage feel sporadic flutters, not the kind of heavy movements Gypsy claims to be experiencing. Additionally, the public's perception of Gypsy has shifted. As one commenter bluntly stated, "What a nasty ex-murderer. I used to see her as a victim, but now I question her entire story." This shift in perception is significant. The lack of remorse or maturity in her responses only solidifies this change in public opinion. Lastly, several commenters have raised concerns about the inconsistencies in Gypsy's appearance. She posted weeks ago about how she couldn't wear jeans anymore, and now she's back in jeans, looking completely different. This, paired with fluctuating bump sizes and the photos where the bump appears larger or smaller than it should be, has left people doubting her narrative even further. Inconsistencies like this make it harder for anyone to take her claims at face value. Gypsy Rose Blanchard's pregnancy saga is riddled with contradictions, evasive language, and a noticeable lack of genuine proof. From her overly rehearsed video updates to her attempts to silence critics with sarcasm and deflection, it's clear that something just doesn't add up. The unanswered questions about her fluctuating baby bump, combined with her history of deception and manipulation, only serve to cast more doubt on her story. Until Gypsy provides concrete evidence and starts addressing the inconsistencies head-on, the public skepticism will only continue to grow.